today you are about to witness me profile a totally new client. His name is Garrett. And the purpose of this video is for you guys to be able to see some of the tips and some of the nuances of how certain types may come out, and also my process on profiling people, which is essentially, interviewing people and asking them questions to be able to identify their best fit type. Best fit Myers-Briggs type, by the way. So today, like I said, you're going to be watching me profile Garrett. And I did end up hitting record maybe about after 30 seconds of him speaking. So it's going to start off in like a semi weird spot. But all I did was ask him, the first question that I asked him was, what is it that you love to do? And when I say that you love to do, I mean that you love to do so much that the only reason why you stop is because you're absolutely exhausted. Otherwise, you'd go on indefinitely. So what you guys are going to hear is him answering that question, and then the profiling session from there just pretty much moves on. So this is the part one of the profiling session, and then at the very end, I'm going to say what type I believe that he is. So for those of you who are watching watching the premiere, the live chat, y'all can discuss. Garrett might also be in the live chat. At the end, we were able to talk it over. I believe that whatever date that I've set this for, he should be available to be in the live chat. Y'all can continue to ask him questions. He will not tell you his type. I won't say his type. I'm not going to say anything like, oh, that's right or that's wrong. I'm just going to be like, oh, interesting, whatever. But this is to help y'all, to be able to better understand how cognitive functions show up in real life and not just in theory, and maybe even some tips on how y'all can profile other people in your life, and so yeah, make sure that y'all, pay attention, write down notes if you need to. Feel free to ask questions. If you're watching post premiere, then unfortunately I guess you won't be able to ask any of the questions, but you can still watch the live chat replay. And you can see the discussion that was going on over there for the premiere. And yeah, let's just have fun. And last heads up, I will admit that I was snacking during this session. And I talked about it before me and Garrett got onto the session, before I even opened up the bag of chips. And I explained to him, I was like, hey, to be honest, man, something I realized, maybe it's kind of like L from Death Note. I just think and focus a lot better when I'm snacking on something. So just wanted to throw that out there before anybody's like, oh, how unprofessional, Yeah, I mean, it pretty much is. And if he had a problem with that, then I wouldn't have done it. But yeah, so just all of that. Enjoy, have fun, and let's see if you guys get the right type for him.
So that would be that first section of notes I think I shared, which is just the typology stuff. It's I'm just opening up my phone to see some examples. It's just taking notes of what I think my own type is, what I think mostly my own type. Sometimes what I think other people's types are, just various interpretations of typology through it's like I can just read through some of them today. For example, personality hacker, introverted intuition and introverted thinking, works as perspective and accuracy. Introverted intuition and vulnerability and introverted feeling authenticity also work under more constrained definitions. What is science and why is it the only thing we should listen to? What's the argument for only listening to or believing scientific knowledge? That's kind of arguing with myself about, some different ideas I had about should I be approaching this question of personality and understanding myself more scientifically, or less or maybe a less scientific perspective with typology.
Okay.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's a lot of that. It's also a lot of trying to identify the functions, but it's at this current point in time, it's in the interest of typing myself. Even when I'm clarifying the definitions, it's all about still trying to get to an answer about my own type. That's probably the best way to describe it. It's just typing myself, and and that involves getting a handle on the definitions, and thus through doing that, I try to type myself.
It makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. Yeah, no, that's good to know. What would you say is the first second?
Close second?
Mhm.
Not there. It's not a close second. It's a far second. Yeah, because I spend the majority of my time trying to do that. It's hard. I think oddly enough, because I know I mentioned, and by the way, like the notes that I mentioned on my phone, I'm definitely not constrained to the interpretation that I shared with you of that. Oh, that's beta quadra. That's
Oh yeah.
introverted intuition, introverted thinking. I'm not constrained to that because, and this is a bit of an odd data point, but it's like I'll do these kind of act outs. I have like a comedy background, so I do like act outs and characters and poses and gesticulations just to like entertain myself. Um, I'll do that because the notes on my phone that those don't really take the form of notes. I don't really write down what I'm doing. I just do it. Um, but the notes on my phone, that's like the stand up, the rap lyrics, the notes on like martial arts striking techniques. So because that does kind of form like an NT, ST, SF, NF continuum, but that's not what I spend. I don't spend a lot of time actively writing stand up, for instance, or actively like uh, like I'll just be because I pace when I think. You eat when you think. I pace when I think. So I'll be pacing, and then I'll sometimes break out into these little characters or skits with myself, kind of. Um, yeah.
That's really interesting. Huh. That's pretty cool, man.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so my next question for you would be, how would you say that others would describe you? Like if I were to go to some of your closest friends and ask them, like, hey, so I'm actually profiling Garrett. What can
Mhm.
you tell me about him? If you want, you can go ahead and even act out. You don't have to, but like if it helps you even further convey like what they'd say or how they'd say it, like you can act.
Oh. I think they'd probably just call, I mean, the first thing people, it's not a brag. It's really not. It's just how people see me. It's like intelligent. Um, for various reasons, they'd say that based on how I was in high school, how they know me now, where I went to for undergrad, that type of stuff. Quiet would be probably those would probably be the first two. Thoughtful, not thoughtful in necessarily the compassionate sense, but in the like cerebral is a better word. Yeah,
Yeah.
those are
Okay.
probably like the top two or three.
Yeah, I could see that for you actually. That makes sense.
Mhm.
Um, and do you have any others? You don't have to. I'm just making sure.
Those are the ones that came to mind first. I
Okay.
would hope that they would say funny. I don't know if they would, unfortunately.
Well, that
Um,
would be nice, Okay. Now, what would you say to describe yourself? And that could
hmm.
be some of the repeats from what you said before, or you could say some things like, "Yeah, they think that I'm this, but actually I'm more this." Things that you maybe disagreed with before, even.
Focused, bordering on myopic.
Can
Uh,
you repeat that one more time?
what was that?
Can you repeat that one more time?
Focused, bordering on myopic.
Mm.
Just with my kind of interest in typology. Um, Skeptical. We can get into that a bit more later. That's definitely a talking point. Um, Introspective. Is another talking point there. Also, just kind of like I don't know, unconstrained or like not I almost want to say like not afraid, but that's not quite it. It's more like loose, relaxed, but not loose or relaxed. That's not it either. It's more like kind of like not afraid of myself or not afraid to be myself kind of type thing. Um, Rigid, like I'm not like entrenched in any like ideology or thing that like constricts my behavior or kind of like unlimited, but not like in like I have unlimited resources or anything. I'm like I'm not I don't constrain myself, I guess.
Got you.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Got
yeah.
I like that. All right. Okay. So I want to ask actually. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the hardest, what would you say you'd rate you being able to gauge how others feel about you, and then also how you felt about like describing yourself. So
Oh,
for
which was easier and which was harder?
yeah, pretty much like so on a scale of 1 to 10, like 10 being like, oh, that's like really hard. Like, what would you say? How hard was it for you to gauge how others thought of you?
It wasn't too hard because I can remember.
Mm,
Um, I mean, not remember necessarily, but I don't think I'd say maybe that one was a bit easier, but not by much. Um, it's been hard for me to form. I think it's hard for me to form my own opinions of people, including myself.
mhm,
Um, like I remember there was this time where I was talking with my dad about typology stuff, and he's like, "How would you describe like our family like without using typological terms?" And it was like hard to do that,
mhm,
including myself.
mhm,
Um, but yeah, I'd say, but I mean, I don't think they were nothing was like that difficult. So maybe like a 6 and a 4. So a 6 for whichever one is harder is the 6 and a 4, but also like both bordering around like not too difficult.
mhm. Okay, okay, got you. All right. So my next question for you: how would you describe your upbringing in childhood? Like, how were you like as a child? How was your family dynamic? Stuff like that.
A lot more not strict, but just constrained. I think I constrained myself, my own activities and my behaviors and what I said and what I thought and what I did. Not necessarily because that pressure was put on me, but I think I kind of felt compelled to control myself or be a bit more not self-controlled. I think I am pretty self-controlled now. Maybe I'm not, but just more. It's kind of like that thing I was talking about before with the like not being limited. I think I was more limited when I was younger. I was more not necessarily afraid, but just well, I have to do these things. I have to do X, Y, and Z. If I don't do X, Y, and Z, I don't know something. But you know,
Mhm.
my upbringing. That's me as a kid. My upbringing, I would say, was I don't have this. This is also a bit of a harder one to describe. I don't have that much to say about my up. It doesn't strike me as any way in particular. My upbringing doesn't strike me as like easy or hard or tough or loving or anything. It's just it was fine. Or particularly any one of those things. Obviously, all those things were there, but it doesn't strike me particularly. There's nothing that stands out to me about it. I guess maybe because I haven't heard that much about other people's upbringing, so I don't have anything to compare it to. I just have my own upbringing as a data point, so it's all like,
Yeah,
uh,
no, that makes sense. That makes sense.
yeah.
How would you say that do you remember, or have people told you like how you were as a child?
Just mostly what I was saying. I mean that's part of what I was saying with the,
Mm,
I was very focused on being a good kid, like ethically, um, making the correct decisions, doing the right thing, hanging out with the kids that nobody else would hang out with because I thought that was the right thing to do, stuff like that. The nice thing to do, the right thing to do, something like that. Um, that's what I remember about myself. That's kind of different now.
mm,
Um, wasn't super. I mean, I read a lot. Um,
yeah.
yeah, read a lot. Built Legos and solved puzzles and um, built train tracks.
Huh.
I played with other kids where I'd pretend to be an animal and we'd pretend to be animals. I watched a lot of like nature documentaries and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, lots of reading, Lots of watching nature documentaries. That's probably it for when I was younger.
Yeah.
I drew pictures of animals, mostly. Yeah, that's about it for early to mid childhood, I'd say.
Yeah, no, that helps a lot. Um, what types of books did you read?
Well, I had like a lot of fiction books that I'd read. That was like a bit later, but I don't know which one I started reading first. I probably had to be fiction because I'd have like science picture books of
Mm,
like that would describe like animals or biology or not chemistry but like earth science stuff maybe.
mhm,
Um, Lots of animal encyclopedias of like dinosaurs and different wildlife and
mhm.
stuff like that. Uh, but I'd read that stuff, but I'd also read like excuse me, I'd read fiction as well, just
Gotcha,
run of the mill fiction, young
gotcha.
adult fiction.
Were you ever interested in a series of unfortunate events, Lemony Snicket books?
Yeah, I think I read all those.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I love the series. Necklace probably says it all, but yeah, I was a big fan.
Which one? What is that again?
With the eye tattoo.
Who had that? I don't remember.
So Count Olaf had it on his ankle, and then
Oh, okay.
finding out later that pretty much everybody who was part of VFD, which is actually what it is, a VFD, not an eye, they
Uh,
had it in their ankle and everything. So
yeah, I don't remember that. I think I only read through them once. That's probably why.
yeah, no, for sure. But yeah, like, so I was just wondering, because you said fiction, you read a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
So, um, did you? I don't think you mentioned. How were your parents? Like, did you have any siblings? Like, how was your relationship with all of them?
How's my relationship with them? Pretty much. So, pretty positive. Or just I don't know. You want to have like a positive relationship with your parents and your siblings, and that's also pretty much the norm. I wouldn't say it was particularly positive given other people's relationships with their parents, or particularly negative given other people's relationships with their parents and their siblings. Um, Trying to think. I don't remember a lot of. I don't have a good sense. I think of like relationships that I have with other people. I don't think about those relationships themselves as entities as much as I think of the individuals. Well, that's not even true because I don't really think about the individuals that much either.
Okay.
Um,
So would you say that there's someone who probably doesn't really even think much about like relationships?
oh yeah, definitely. That's something that's definitely on the tail end of the to-do list or priority list for me. Yeah.
Gotcha. And when you were focused on being good and becoming friends with the people who maybe most people didn't really like talk to. Of course, you don't strike me as somebody who didn't care about them, but how would you describe then that relationship in comparison to what you just said? Like,
It was more about doing the right thing as opposed to the relationship. It was more about like it wasn't about the relationship itself. It wasn't like I need to build rapport and get to know this person. It's just like this person is different for whatever reason. Nobody seems to like them. I want to hang out with them, so I'll go. I'll be the good kid and go do that type thing.
cool. That's what I thought. I wanted to make sure. That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. So next question. How would you describe your relationship with your emotions?
Level and uninteresting because they're not that present most of the time. They're just kind of yeah. They're not that active.
Gotcha.
It's a good way to put it. Yeah, they're not that active.
Would you say that you are more aware of your own emotions or are you more aware of other people's emotions?
Probably other people's,
Mhm.
but I think it's only because other people react emotionally more than I do. Like if I did react emotionally as much as other people did, then I'd probably notice that too. I don't know, but it's just other people's emotions are more. Other people are more emotionally active or emotionally busy than I am.
Mm,
So I mean, also there's more people. They're
right.
not. There's more than one person besides me. So it's like that person, that person, that person, all these different people. One of them is going to have like an emotional reaction at some point in time, just over the course of a day or whatever. Um, but yeah, I'm very emotionally stable and yeah,
Even
it's
as
not it's not, and it's not stable at happy or sad. It's stable at neutral. Yeah.
gotcha. Yeah. Even as an ENFJ, I heavily relate to that. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, I feel like I would like to think of myself as a very rational person. As rational, I guess, as like not as the most rational human being, of course, but like
Mhm.
as rational as human beings could be, like around that space. Um, my emotions don't really spike. I don't really like get stressed out. I don't deal with anxiety almost at all. Um, but then when I see like other people, like they're struggling with it a lot, and they're having like outbursts, and you know,
Yeah.
a lot of times like, I used to judge other people, and honestly, I still kind of do, but I'm trying to get better with that, with how they're unable to like control their emotions and allow me to influence everybody else's. Then for me, I'm just like, I'm able to keep it to myself until I need to share with someone. But then I realized, like, oh, that's probably because for other people it's just that strong. It's not even necessary that I'm just that good at controlling my emotions. It's that kind of like what you said, they're not as active. I don't have this like burning desire to explode and stuff like
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds
that.
like an FE versus like FI type thing.
Yeah, yeah, maybe. Yeah, it could also
Cause
be I'm a 9 in the Enneagram system, so
yeah. Because I think a lot of different places talk about, well, not a lot, but I know like cognitive type, they talk about like the reason that like FI people versus FE people, one of the differences in their like facial voltology or their facial expressions is that like they constantly have this undercurrent of like uncontrolled emotional expression,
right.
which means because it's not art and casual cognition, Calypso talks about this too, in the
Mhm.
same way that like it's uncoordinated.
Mhm.
It's not coordinated with their words or with their actions or their gesticulations.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Nice. Okay. Now, how would you describe your relationship with your body? As in, like, however way that you understand that, you can go ahead and like let me know.
Sure. Yeah. Pretty solid. I'm very aware, I think, or there's not a lot that I miss. I don't think there's much for me to miss in terms of everything that's going on inside of my physical self. I don't think there's a lot that goes unnoticed. I think I even had, well, I think I even had like too much of that when I was younger. Like I'd walk on like bathroom, not tile, but like there was like, when you go to like a public pool or whatever, and in the bathroom there's like those little plastic things with those holes in them. I'd walk on those and my feet would hurt
Uh,
because they were so sensitive or something like that.
mm,
Um, but that's more. I don't know if that counts as body. It kind of does, but it's
no,
like in terms of like my own physical. I'm also like very I don't know protective of it as well. In terms of like I I don't want it to like be modified or changed or break or anything like that. Like my nose is a bit messed up because I got an elbow when I was playing basketball this one time, and that bugs me even though it's not really an issue. Just because like why isn't my nose correct or why doesn't it? It's not even noticeable. It's
yeah,
just like it clicks sometimes when I brush it, stuff
that's
like that.
interesting. I might save that for after the session. I'm glad that you actually stated that.
Hmm.
Did you say you pretty much said that not much goes unnoticed for you, like at least like internally. What about like externally? Like, would you say that you're pretty much aware of your surroundings a lot of the times? Like, you're aware of like who's pretty much like around you or what's going on around you, and even if some things might go like missed, You tend to catch most things. Maybe you actually catch everything, or are you more of like, oh no, I'm just so zoned off in my head that I don't catch like almost anything at all?
I, to compare it to my bodily awareness, I would say that like I don't pay as much attention, but I'm still pretty adept at that. Like I'm not actively like noticing everything and being like, oh, I should take care of that. Oh, I should look into that. That's
Right,
going on externally, but internally, I'm like, oh, I should keep an eye on that. That's kind of weird, or
right.
whatever. Um, but yeah, I don't think I'm like I am in my head, but I'm a lot, but it's not to the point where I can't, um, where I'm or rather not to the point where I'm not just generally aware of my surroundings. I don't like run into walls or
Right.
whatever people who are less aware of their surroundings do. I don't even know what they do. But like, I guess I don't. Like, I'm very aware. Like when I'm crossing the street, I'm watching. I'm not just watching like the stop sign. I'm watching the cars and the stop sign or the stop light and the other people and saying, "Up, they just came because they are in a rush, or they just walked because they think that they have enough time. Do I have enough time to get across? Should I jaywalk? Should I not jaywalk? Stuff like that. I'm pretty aware of that stuff.
Got you. Great answer. Okay, cool. Um, I think the last one to just hit on that. Um, you said that you do martial arts, right? Or you're interested in martial arts. Can you
Done
describe?
martial arts, and then I also, but like I've done martial arts like formally in the past, but I also informally just kind of like mess around with like jabs and different types of strikes and
Mhm.
shadow boxing stuff based on the stuff I've watched and been taught, and just saying like, how do I throw this punch correctly? How do I throw this jab correctly? What's the best way to punch? What's the best stance to be in? Should you be on your toes or shuffling or on the soles of your feet? Stuff like that.
Nice, nice, nice. Cool. All right. Let's see. Can go a few different directions from here. Uh, how quickly would you say that you are to hop into action?
Slow, uh, definitely more deliberate, not impulsive. Um, Everything that I actually decide to do on my own accord is like very thought through.
Gotcha. Would you say that? How would you describe your relationship with the future?
Kind of hazy, or just less than hazy, like not very, yeah, not super aware of it. This is something that like I brought up in other conversations about typology relating to my type. Has been this existential death anxiety I dealt with when I was younger, which is kind of like looking way into the future, because it wasn't even like it was kind of like I could die at any second, but it was also like mortality in general, aging in general.
Mhm.
Um, but that's not like anything. It was something that would like crop up. I mean, like I don't want to think about that, but not necessarily like go away, but just like it would be a negative experience every time.
Mhm.
Um, so that was something that would crop up, somewhat just intermittently through the years, through the month, just as I go through life. It's kind of subsided now, but it's not like I'm not like I'm not. I don't. Maybe that's why, because I don't consciously focus on the future, so it's kind of pops up unconsciously at times. But no,
Mhm.
I don't spend a lot of time. No, I don't spend that much time thinking about it, planning for it. It's most like, yeah, it's not on my radar that much. I can see it, like I'm aware, like I need to like have my shit together or whatever,
Right.
but it's not like to the point where I'm like, you know, completely entrenched in like future pacing and stuff like that.
Got it. All right. Hmm. I'm narrowing down, but I want to
Hmm.
really tight things to be like, yep, that's just it. Um,
I'm gonna grab some pretzels while you're thinking.
Absolutely no problem.
I guess let me know when if the chewing gets too loud. I'll try and like put this mic.
Oh yeah, no,
Hopefully,
for
yeah,
sure. No,
hopefully it won't be annoying or anything.
yeah.
What was that?
Am I good too? Have I been good
Yeah,
too?
I couldn't even hear you at all. So
Awesome. Cool. Perfect. All right. So my next question for you actually is, what would you say your threshold is for very abstract philosophical conversation that does not have to do with type?
what do you mean by threshold?
When people start talking about very intangible, almost even like unrealistic, big picture type of things, are you the type of person to like get really excited and you start like jumping in, might even start leading the conversation? Are you like just sitting back and listening? Are you like annoyed? Um, do
I
you?
think I think I see what you mean. The thing is that like I don't like without with what you already know based on my answers about like not being like super socially oriented or relationship focused. It's not too much like conversation that I just seek out on my own accord. Just like it's not, and it doesn't come to me that much because I'm not in those contexts. Um, but it doesn't. I don't think. I'm trying to think. I can have like philosophical conversations because I already have like I have like I think philosophically about stuff in general. Like
Mhm,
that's the skepticism I mentioned before, which is maybe better to go into now.
mhm,
Like there's ideas in like philosophy that I've already just kind of been like, oh yeah, that I'll read it. I'll be like, yeah, I've thought that already.
mhm,
Like Pyrrhonian skepticism, epistemic skepticism. It's just how do we know what we know? Is anything certain? Can we know anything for sure? And for me, that's something I've been aware of since middle school. That's kind of where the death anxiety kicked in. I was just like, you know, um, nothing is the first thought in that chain was just like nothing is absolute,
right.
and then it was like if nothing is absolute, and I don't know where that came from. It was just like experience or something like that. Like nothing is absolute. Therefore, if nothing is absolute, then all these religious beliefs I have are not absolute.
Mhm.
Therefore, if those religious beliefs I have are not absolute, then I can't go through life as if they are because they might be false and I might be just walking into death or something like that. So
Which is an interesting thought in itself because the idea that nothing's absolute is also in itself an absolute statement.
absolutely, I came across that one like a year or two ago, I think.
Mhm.
But yeah, I didn't. I was like in middle school, so I didn't. I guess I
Oh
wasn't
yeah,
up on that level yet. But
for sure.
uh, yeah, but yeah, that is an absolute statement, and that's the thing. It's a self defeating statement because it's just like everything is absolute. How do you know everything is absolute? Is that absolute type stuff?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think like where I've been with that lately. Nowhere really. No, I mean, because I haven't really dealt with it that much recently because it's almost like the typology is kind of like an answer to the skepticism to an extent.
That makes sense.
Um, you
I feel like low key, that's how it's been like for me a little bit. Because even
know.
like a lot of people say like, oh, typology is not real, this is that. But I profile people and I like see it in people who don't even know anything like about type. I
Yeah, yeah.
profile them and I'm like, this is a clear use of T. This is a clear use of FI with TE in the inferior position, stuff like that. And so it's like, oh, this person clearly does not have FE. Yeah. So it is definitely like interesting to like, even if it's not an absolute truth that type is like a hard science or whatever, um, it's almost like, well, what you believe does actually sometimes like happen. And when it comes to like even with placebo effect, it's been proven that if people believe that they're being prayed for, somehow something happens and they start healing faster and this going on. Is it actual, divine intervention, or is it the Space Jam water that, everybody thought was actually some juice that made these Looney Tunes become big monsters? We don't know. But either way, it still works, and I guess it's like just all again about like what you believe, and what you believe is actually going to manifest in that way. But anyway, yeah, just something else about there.
I've had a thought about that before in terms of like along those lines, in the sense of like if, let's say somebody is religious and they die believing they're going to heaven, they pretty much, even if there is no heaven, they went to heaven, because everything up to that point until the end, they were like, I'm going, nothing. That's it doesn't matter after that, because that's what they thought.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There's also a Pete Holmes comedian. There's this comedian Pete Holmes who has this joke. He's like, who would you rather be on the crashing flight? The guy who's just like, well, this is all as meaningless as it all was.
Right.
Or would you rather be the guy who's like, I'm going home?
I think I've heard that joke before too, but yeah.
Yeah. I like Pete Holmes. He's pretty goofy.
Yeah. And yeah, for that, I do believe then that people need something to believe in. Or need is probably a strong word, but it's beneficial for a lot of people to believe in something. Hopefully that they believe in, a lot of times is actually like true, and therefore they're not just deceiving themselves. But if also not, like you said, they die, nothing really happens. It is what it is. But yeah, cool. So since you don't really have many abstract conversations, would you say that curious side of you is like, met through all of your research, like you said, in typology, and like just like reading, even maybe like animal documentaries, stuff like that. Like that's how you you substitute the conversations with in real life, kind of things, or
the curiosity isn't towards anything. It's curiosity is all about me. Curiosity doesn't extend really outside of myself at this point. I don't know if it even did when I was younger, to be honest, or if it was just because I didn't really have any questions about, like, why is it that Tyrannosaurus Rex has such tiny arms? I didn't have that question. I wanted the more information. I wanted more information on whatever I was reading about. And I didn't really have that same, I'm trying to think, curiosity. I do have curiosity, but it's focused on me. Gotcha. It's not focused outside of myself.
All right. And when you say it's focused on you, you mean like just learning more about yourself? Like
why I've done the things I've done, why I do the things I do, why I've acted the way I've acted, behaved the way I've behaved, made the decisions I have, why I've responded differently to different stimuli, stuff like that.
Got it. Yeah. Totally makes sense. Would you say that you're an organized person?
Not physically or in my surroundings, definitely not. I'm meticulous. I'm a meticulous thinker, though. I'm very meticulous in my thought process. This goes back to the skepticism.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we're wrapping up. I'm just crossing a few more I's or T's.
T's, dotting with I's. There you go.
Do you have any good catchphrases? Things that you may frequently say?
No. I don't try to, and I don't have any. I used to do this thing in middle school when people would be like, people started making your mom jokes, and I thought they were dumb. So I'd just say, as people would make a joke, I'd be like, your mailbox. I'd do that over and over and over again until the teacher was just like, you have to stop that. It's annoying me. So
Got
It's a proud moment, I guess.
it. All right.
But I don't. Yeah, that was just. I did that then, and then I don't really have any of that stuff that I do now.
Mhm, mhm. Okay. What would you say is the biggest lesson that you had to learn the hard way?
I haven't thought about that before. I don't know actually. Lesson. I've learned things. I don't know if I've learned lessons in terms of like, this is how I should act, as
Mhm.
opposed to this other way. Um, I haven't. I don't make. I don't make. I was about to say I don't make that many mistakes, and I was like, that's arrogant. But I don't really. I don't make that. I'm very careful. I'm already like. I'm not gonna trip up on stuff. I'm gonna trip up by not acting, arguably, before I trip up by acting and doing something dumb. I think.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I don't. I haven't learned. Yeah, lessons. Yeah, my dad asked me a similar question when he was in town visiting. He was like, "What's like a lesson you've learned from me, or something along those lines?" I was just like, I didn't really have it. I don't. 'Cause I don't. I don't like retain. I don't form those types. I don't form lessons. I guess in my head, I don't go like, you know what? Anytime this happens, I should do that. Because last time when I did this, and the time before that I did this, and just that's just not my narrative, I guess.
Got you. Yeah, that makes sense. What would you say is something that's obvious to you, but is usually not obvious to other people? And then something that's obvious to other people, but then not really obvious to you. Yo, how do I keep on missing this?
Obvious to me would be, or no, yes, obvious to me, how to walk and move yourself correctly, how to just conduct yourself in your physical environment
Mhm.
effectively, efficiently, correctly. I see people like running with bad form, walking weird, unathletic stuff, I guess. Um, I don't quite, that's an example. I think there might be other things too. I don't know. That's one that I do notice repeatedly when I'm just out walking. Um, it's probably the main one. It's the one that showed up first
Yeah,
mentally. I can just maybe go to the next question then, which was things that are.
obvious to other people.
I feel like I've tried to answer this question from other people before in various contexts, and I've never been able to come up with a good answer. Because I don't like see like, oh man, like why can't I do X, or I don't really have that because there's not that much that like I see other people. Well, here we go. Maybe relationships to an extent, but it's not like what I'm trying to talk about is the fact that I haven't been in any like serious relationship or anything like that, uh, or anything like bordering on that even. And it's not like I say like I see that and be like, why can't I figure this out? That's not the attitude.
Right,
The
right.
attitude is more like, why is it that it's like a type? It's like it's an introspective question of like, why is it that this has been the way that I've progressed through my life and other people progressed through it by having been in multiple relationships and serious relationships and stuff like that by my age. But it's not at the point where I'm like, I don't know. It is kind of like I don't know how to do that. But it's not like it trips me up. It's just like, it is kind of like I don't know how to like initiate those types of relationships, sure. But it's not like, but it's also not anything that like I'm necessarily like wishing I maybe now not wishing no it's interesting because it's like now I'm like at the age where I'm like, well, you know, on the off chance that I actually do want to be in a serious relationship with somebody at some point in my life, or have a family or anything like that, then I guess I should kind of like figure out how to do this stuff. um
Yeah.
but and that's only recent that I've even started thinking about that.
Mhm.
um because previously it's just not even been anything I've like, because also it's been like, well, I guess it'll just happen because that's just seem everybody else seems to just kind of fall into these things happenstantially, I guess, if that's a word,
Yeah.
by happenstance. So I guess that's kind of an answer, but at the same time, what was the way you worded that again, if you remember?
Um, things that are obvious to other people but are not really obvious to you.
Yeah, that whole kind of like intimate relationship, or like not necessarily hookup culture, but like that space of interaction.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily sexual. It's just, you know, dating or stuff like that. Because it's never been like I've wanted to ask somebody out, like, oh, what do I say? But I have been in context where like, oh, maybe there's a something here, but I haven't really known how to proceed, I guess.
Got you.
Yeah, yeah, I think that is a good answer then. I think that is a good
Yeah,
answer.
for sure. No, that was almost impeccable, to be honest.
Awesome. Glad to hear it.
Okay, so I'm pretty certain of your type at this point, but we're going to go through the clarification process just in case if I maybe misunderstood anything, could be off. And I just want to make sure that we have the right one. So before I say what type I think that you are, and let me write that down here. What type do you think, after having been asked all these questions, that I might conclude with?
I think you're probably thinking, oh, am I? I'm guessing what type I think I am based
Yeah,
on our conversation.
right.
It's an interesting question because we haven't actually mentioned any cognitive functions. But I know your type, and I also know that we were having some like, you know what, I do that type stuff. So like maybe beta quadra. And then based on that last question, I think that was like digging at FE, and like based on that, I'd say maybe you think ISTP or something like that.
Great deduction. Great deduction. Yeah. Yeah. I'm pretty hooked on ISTP, at least as of right now.
Okay, so did you get the right type? If so, let me know. If not, let me know why. If you guys have any questions, definitely drop them and let's all continue to learn together. But be on the lookout for part 2, where I explain why I believe he's the type that he is to Garrett himself. And we go through, even he has like a little like Q&A session to clarify some things and some doubts that he had previously about why that type might be his type. Also, if you guys are interested in being profiled yourself, be sure to email me at dweezy blessed at icloud.com, or hit me up on Facebook, Instagram. You can hit me up over there, although I might be slower to respond, and Twitter. But definitely email, Facebook, Twitter. Those are like the 3 quickest places where you could probably like catch me. And yeah, just let me know, and we'll set up a date, time, all of that, payment plan, and get this started.